If you're earning a decent salary and you're in the market for a Toyota LandCruiser Prado, then it's very likely someone may have suggested a novated lease as the best way to buy this car. And I'm willing to bet that when you looked at the quote, it showed a significant headline number with a huge saving. In this video, I'm going to walk through a real quote on a LandCruiser Prado purchased with a $145,000 a year gross salary and go through the real numbers and really dive into the things you need to watch out for if you are going to go down this path. Guys, if you're new here, my name's Mitch and I cover all things personal finance, specifically stuff that's going to affect your back pocket. And one of those topics is novated leasing. The headline numbers can be significantly different than what the reality actually is. So we're going to dive into it, go through all the details. Let's get into it. All right, the vehicle we're going to be working on is the 2026 Toyota LandCruiser Prado GXL 7-seat. We've got metallic paint, dealer delivery, stamp duty, CTP, and the registration costs, all inclusive. It comes to $86,348 on the road. Okay, so the lease term is going to be 48 months. So that's a 4-year lease. And what we're going to be doing is a 15,000 kilometer average per year. And the total amount financed is going to be $80,345. Now, if you're unsure why, I've got a few other videos which explain how novated leasing works. But long story short, the GST component is removed, so the finance amount is a little lower. Okay, and bundled into your monthly lease payment, we've got the lease rental of the vehicle, we've got the management fee of the novated lease company, we've got registration and CTP renewals, comprehensive car insurance, replacement tires, servicing, and fuel. So the total monthly cost inclusive of GST is $2,474. And once everything's calculated, the actual total salary packaging cost comes to $2,436 per month. And of course, like any other novated lease quote, the big saving per year number is the headline number. And in this particular scenario, it's $5,147 that you're going to save every year. So total that up over the course of your lease and you're saving over $20,000 buying this car through a novated lease. But where does that number actually come from? Now, on a salary of $145,000 a year, without the novated lease, obviously we're going to pay tax based on $145,000. With the lease, we're going to deduct $12,477 of lease costs out of your pre-tax income, and therefore that will reduce your total taxable. So this drops to $132,522 for the year. Now, there's a reason I chose $145,000 a year, because in this particular bracket, you're paying 37% on every dollar over $135,000. And then below that, you're paying 32.5%, which is the current tax rates. So when you do pull 12.5 grand back out of your taxable income and you're at that 145 mark, we're dropping back down into the 32.5% bracket. So it does generate a genuine tax saving. So to answer the question, the total take-home pay for the year without a lease will be $77,400. And using the lease, we're going to bring that back up to 82.5 grand take-home pay. So it's not to say the $5,147 difference is not real, but it certainly comes with some conditions, and I'm going to get into those. The first thing to look out for is the interest rate, and this is what I tell anyone who talks to me about a novated lease. I say, make sure you understand what the interest rate is, and I challenge you to go and get your quote and find how easy it is to identify what that number is. And in this particular quote, the interest rate is actually 10.22%. And look, I'm not going to say that that's, the worst interest rate, especially with the current market, but when you're borrowing over $80,000, that is a significant amount of interest that you're going to be repaying over the life of the loan. And when you compare the 10.22 to what you can find out there, and it only takes a short search, and you're going to see auto finance companies, banks, and brokers that can offer rates that are maybe 2.5–3% lower than what this figure is. And I'm not going to say that everyone's eligible for a much lower interest rate in the current market, but chances are if you are one of the customers that's looking at this sort of vehicle on this sort of salary, you may be in a position where you are eligible for slightly better interest rates. So it's always worth considering and looking. And guys, before we jump into the second point, if you're getting any value from this video or any of my others, a simple like or subscribe to the channel will go a really long way to helping me to grow this channel and continue to provide information that I hope helps everyone. All right, so the next thing to watch out for is the residual figure. Yes, all well and good to have a figure there, think, yes, great, my car's all paid for, all done, don't have to worry about anything. But don't forget that with any lease, you've got a residual figure at the end. And that figure means that you've paid 4 years worth and you haven't actually paid off the full balance of the car. So you're going to owe a significant amount of money. And in this particular scenario, it comes in at $29,670. And you're going to have to actually cover the GST on the way out. So it brings it up to just over $32,000. And that's something to be mindful of, because everyone gets very excited by the fact that you can purchase the car, they can claim the GST back, therefore you don't finance it, but you do have to pay a portion of that back at the end of the lease through the residual repayment. Now, most lease companies have great ways for you to deal with the end with the residual. They're going to make it well and truly known that you need to actually sort this out. And look, you've got plenty of options to do so, but look, it's not like you just wipe your hands of it and you're done. At the end of the day, a car like this though, a Toyota LandCruiser Prado, I'd say it's probably one of the best cars in the current market when it comes to depreciation. So chances are you're probably going to be able to sell it for more. And if you don't have the money to just pay the car out, then of course they're going to have other options for you. So it's not all a big issue. You just got to be aware of it. Okay, and the last thing, I've left it to last. It's a bit more confusing, but at the end of the day, it's very important to understand. And that is that a vehicle such as a LandCruiser Prado is not eligible for the FBT discount that EVs are. So when you're purchasing a car like this, your employer is going to incur a significant FBT liability. So each year, you're going to have to cover $16,765 as they're going to pass that on to you. Now, how this is handled with a novated lease is through what they call the operating cost method. So what that means, part of your lease each month is actually going to be post-tax to cover this liability. So 16,765, divide that by 12, and that component is going to be the amount you pay of post-tax money. Why it's important to understand is I think a lot of people commonly get caught up in the idea that this car is all bought out of pre-tax money and I'm novated leasing it, so it's amazing. I'm going to save all this tax because it's all pre-tax. How good is this? But the reality is there are a portion pre-tax and a large portion post-tax. So don't forget that when it comes to picking the vehicle and the type of vehicle specifically that you want to do a novated lease on. Okay, so to close, the question is it worth using a novated lease to purchase a LandCruiser Prado? And look, I don't want to disappoint anyone, but I'm not going to say yes or no. Of course, it's going to come down to the individual situation. Yes, there are some genuine tax savings to be had, but you need to understand and work out whether those tax savings are worth being locked into this sort of lease product for that 4-year period and potentially paying that inflated interest rate at 10.22% as opposed to finding maybe cheaper money from somewhere else to purchase the vehicle. Okay guys, and one other thing I want to say is if you are going through this process currently or you've got novated lease quotes recently, it would be amazing to chuck some of those details down in the comments. There's a lot of really great and smart people that do reply in the comments here, and all the insight that we can get on what's going on out there in the market would be amazing to see, and I know it's going to help a lot of people. So chuck it in the comments and let's see what sort of feedback we can give you. Until then guys, thank you so much for watching. Good luck out there. Hope your vehicle purchasing is going well, and I'll see you in the next video.